There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 4, Government Communication and Information System Appropriation Bill.
I now invite to the podium the Honourable Minister in the Presidency.
Honorable House Chairperson, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technology, Honorable Kusela Sangoni in absentia, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Honorable Telly Swamkweba, Deputy Ministers in the Presidency, Honorable Kenny Morolong, who is delegated the GCIS responsibility, and Honorable Nongeba Mhlauli, members of the Portfolio Committees on Communications and Digital Technologies and the Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, the senior management of GCIS, Brand SA and MDDA, representatives of the boards of MDDA and Brand SA, and honorable members. The total budget allocation to Government Communication and Information System over the 2026-27, 27-28, 28-29 MTF period amounts to 2.5 billion rands, which is a 3.15% decrease compared to the 2025-26. This budget is allocated as follows per year: 26-27, 803,246 million, 27-28, 837 and 30 million, 28-29, 863 and 45 million. Of the 2026-27 financial year budget, 262.523 million is transfers and subsidies, of which 218,349 million is transferred to the Brand SA and 41,924 is to the MDDA. An operating budget of 535.067 million caters for compensation of employees to the value of 327.517 million to cater for the post-establishment of 500 permanent positions and goods and services to the value of 550 million. I must indicate that the GCIS post-establishment is not fully funded due to insufficient allocation for the compensation of employees and the unfunded cost of living adjustment. This is in addition to the budget reductions implemented by National Treasury over the 2026 MTF period of 29.56 million. In the goods and services budget, we could only have a paltry allocation of 20 million for communication of national key campaigns. Honorable members will certainly be in agreement that 20 million allocation is insufficient to cover the cost of communication across platforms and in all languages, in particular in this important year of local government elections. House Chairperson, the year 2026 is a seminal year. It is hosting significant milestones in the history of South Africa's journey towards freedom and democracy. In this year, South Africa has marked 30 years since the adoption of the Democratic Constitution on the 8th of May 1996 by the first democratic and representative parliament. The Constitution remains a living expression of our nation's collective commitment to constitutional democracy, human rights, freedoms, and the rule of law. It is important to emphasize that the rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution are accompanied by responsibilities that we as citizens have to each other and to our country. We must all therefore play our part. The country will also commemorate the 50th anniversary or the Golden Jubilee of the 1976 Soweto Youth Uprisings that spread across the country and continued into 1977. The opposition to Bantu education and the introduction of Afrikaans as a forced medium of instruction galvanized the masses of young people to render the country ungovernable and apartheid unworkable in the fight for freedom and democracy. In August 2026, the country will also commemorate 70th anniversary of the 9th August 1956 Women's March, wherein 20,000 women marched to the union buildings protesting the extension of past laws to women. In light of these milestones, the GCIS is coordinating not only commemorations of these milestones in South Africa's history, but mobilizing South Africans around the Milestones of Freedom campaign under the theme honoring the past, delivering the future. As a whole of society approach, this campaign involves package service weeks that mobilizes public service interventions to and with communities in support of the district development model. The campaign focuses on citizens as active participants in their own environments rather than passive recipients of government services. The Milestones of Freedom campaign also carries with an educational and informational component. For example, many South Africans do not know that white women were part of the 1956 Women's March as they understood the impact of the extension of the past laws to Black women who would have on their own lives. The Milestones of Freedom campaign is coordinated both at national and provincial departments and district municipalities and in partnership with community media to ensure the widest reach. 2026 is also a year of the local government elections. Ordinarily, GCIS should be running a fully fledged campaign for voter education and elections awareness as part of strengthening our participatory democracy. However, the GCIS was not allocated funds to support the local government elections. Without a fully fledged local government elections campaign, the GCIS will strive to provide accurate and timely information related to the 2026 local government elections. Honorable members, to improve the GCIS ability to execute on its mandate of coordinating the government communication system to be coherent and responsive, the GCIS is repositioning itself to serve as a government content hub. This is part of evolving GCIS from being just a coordinator of government communication system, but also to serve as a government content hub by becoming a central content authority of government communication. The benefits of GCIS being a government content hub include it strengthens consistency in government messaging, it allows government to frame its messaging, maintains information authority during crisis as a central authority of information source, counters misinformation with verified sources, serve as supplier of verified government information to media houses. The key pillars of the government content hub model are: 1, editorial content center; 2, the wire service of government information; 3, platforms approach; 4, reviewed media engagement approach; 5, national fact-check capability. The GCIS has started to operationalize the editorial content center, which is being replicated at provincial level. The editorial content center coordinates the other 4 pillars for informed editorial decision-making. The wire service of government information. During the 2025-26 budget debate, I indicated that GCIS is positioning SA News as a wire service of government information. We are firmly on course to ensure that SA News content is designed not just for publication, but for redistribution. Therefore, the performance measurement of SA News is not based on website traffic, but the number of downstream channels that have used the SA News content or the redistribution rate. The next steps will include releasing alerts and statements through SA News. And on the redistribution rate matter, between April 2025 and March 2026, 377 SA News content was reused by downstream channels, which was comprised of 306 national downstream channels reused and 77 international. Platforms approach. Our platforms approach departs from a view that platforms are not just output channels, but they are also feedback loop, with every engagement, question, and share guided by a deliberate and coordinated approach. Commencing in the 2026-27 financial year, GCIS will commence monitoring the weekly reach, engagement, and shares across all platforms, not only for performance data, but also close the GCIS visibility gap. Closing the GCIS visibility gap requires GCIS to have a structured summary and analysis of what citizens are asking and sharing, and where government is absent from conversations which are underway. The insights will inform redistribution and content decisions and editorial actions. This advances the work on improved engagement rate aimed at improving interaction between government and citizens, which we piloted in the 2025-26 financial year. From that pilot, it is pleasing to report a substantial growth in the GCIS managed digital platforms, which achieved over 1.4 billion reach in 2025-26. On the reviewed media engagement approach, the reviewed media engagement approach emphasizes both the proactive and reactive elements, which are supported by a strong media monitoring capacity. The media monitoring function identifies narratives needing responses or amplification. On the proactive front, the revised media engagement approach supports the implementation of the departmental or provincial or local government communication plans. In the 2026-27 financial year, the GCIS will improve on monitoring the implementation of government communications plans, both at compliance and substantive levels. At the core of the revised media engagement strategy is community media driven by the use of local languages to expand reach and messaging. Deputy Minister Mrolong will expand on the approach to community media and the MDDA plans to support them. Dealing with misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. The problem of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, generally characterized as fake news, remains a serious challenge. We have observed the contribution of digital media and artificial intelligence as theaters and tools of disinformation and misinformation. South Africa's situation is exacerbated by the fact that South Africans are rated as the topmost people propagandized in the world in the Ipsos Perils of Perception Index 2026. According to Ipsos' most surveys, South Africans are amongst the most misinformed and disconnected from reality regarding the state of their own nation. Therefore, the GCIS response to misinformation and disinformation must be deliberate and systematic. Having observed how other countries are addressing this phenomena at a policy level, the national AI policy must compel digital media platforms to, 1, disclose the AI-generated content carried on their platforms, or what we call AI content branding. 2, prohibit the broadcasting of fake and misleading news about South Africa. In the meantime, when the AI policy is being actually rewritten and the cybersecurity strategy being finalized, the GCIS will engage with digital platform owners to reach agreement on the 2 proposed principles. Furthermore, the GCIS is provisioning for the government fact-check capability to proactively debunk deepfakes and tactical misinformation. This measure seeks to progress the current stamping of fake news, but collating the stamped fake news images, videos, and stories to enable individuals to personally check through creation of a dedicated website supported by a digital platform. In addition, the GCIS will also provide correct facts against the fake news. The goal is to position GCIS as the anchor of the truth. Individuals will also be able to alert GCIS on suspected fake news, which they will also have come across in their daily interactions. GCIS is also developing a quick guide to assist government communicators in effectively countering misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Honorable House Chairperson, on behalf of Deputy Minister Mrolong and myself, I wish to thank the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies for their continued support, insight, and constructive engagement, and also the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring, and Evaluation, who oversee ActionSA for their continued support, insight, and robust oversight. We extend our gratitude to the leadership and staff of the GCIS and its entities for their continued commitment to the work of ensuring that South Africans are empowered through information. The GCIS Acting Director General, Nomonde Mnukwa, for effectively holding the fort during the GCIS rebuilding phase. It was not an easy period to get to the place where we can reposition and articulate on clear measures that are being implemented to improve our communication and to boost that government departments, including municipalities and entities, are now holding their media briefings at GCIS institutions, because GCIS is now anchored as the content coordinator and also the coordinator of government information system. We are confident that the DPSA will soon announce the process of appointing a substantive DG for GCIS for cabinet approval. Ndiyabulela Mazibula, ngachivenda bari anirichireri. You did your best. You supported us, and we are today a GCIS that is to be reckoned with, that can hold shoulders above others, because you were ready to carry the work. Thank you very much, Nakens.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is the Honorable Apiri. Honorable Apiri, before you proceed, let me just take the point of order. What is your point of order, Honorable Member?
Thank you, Chair. I was asked outside to
What is
alert
the point of order?
members. Chair, I'm explaining what would be my point of order. I was requested to implore the members to use their languages because we now have interpreters.
Thank you, honorable member.
Yes.
It's noted. That applies to all debates in the House. Even your own members must use their languages. Thank you. Please proceed, honorable member.
Honorable House Chairperson, honorable ministers and deputy ministers, honorable members, fellow South Africans. Honorable Chair, we rise on the budget vote 4 in a year that the African National Congress has declared the year of decisive action. A year to fix local government, transform the economy, and continue the construction of a capable, ethical, and developmental state. We do so at a moment that is structurally significant and places the value of democracy to ultimate test. South Africa will hold local government elections in November 2026, and the organized disinformation infrastructure targeting the country's democratic institutions and its national reputation has never been better resourced or more deliberately coordinated. Honorable Chairperson, the 2026-27 allocation of 803.2 million is 26.1 million below the 2025-26 baseline. That reduction is explained by the once-off G20 allocation that has now fallen away. The mandate, however, has not fallen. The mandate, however, has not fallen away. Local government elections, a national dialogue, a disinformation environment without precedent in the country's democratic history. The money has gone down, the work has gone up. We start this debate from the honest ledger. Our constitution obligates the state to provide timely, accurate, and accessible public information. That obligation becomes acutely consequential when coordinated disinformation is designed to fill the space left vacant by government. The African National Congress position, rooted in our resolution to tackle cyber threats and disinformation, is clear. Silence and retrospective correction are not a communication strategy. The only durable instrument is a government communication system that is credible, fast, and multilingual enough to reach citizens before the algorithm does. The 2025 to 2030 National Communication Strategy Framework is the institutional response to that imperative. Chairperson, let us frame this debate with absolute clarity from the onset. Our focus today is a defense of democracy, not a restriction of speech. The Portfolio Committee must not assess Brand South Africa's mandate in isolation from the broader disinformation threat. Coordinated narratives that distort South Africa's image in international investment markets constitute active attacks on Brand SA's core mandate and cost this country in capital flows and diplomatic standing. When organized disinformation undermines both the credibility of government and the integrity of the nation brand domestically and in international market, it actively destabilizes our development. The 218.3 million transferred from GCIS to Brand SA in 2026-27 is therefore not just administrative expenditure. It is a defensive expenditure on our democracy and our nation's brand. Over the medium term, 308.4 million is allocated to brand marketing and reputation management, which is 43.9% of Brand South Africa's projected spending. The buy market, buy message strategy, which tailors counter narratives by region to address country-specific disinformation campaigns that affect investor confidence, and South Africa's global reported against that function. Global reported against competitiveness must serve as a systematic counter-narrative instrument.
Honorable
With-
Member, your time is now expired. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Manyi.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think Parliament is confused. They have muddled up these budgets. You've got Brand SA here that reports elsewhere. You've got, it's a mess. So what I'm going to do here today, I'm not going to talk to GCIS. I'm not going to talk to MDDA because it belongs to another committee. So I'm going to talk to the one element that is here, which is the Brand SA. Total mess, which must be sorted out. Chairperson, today we rise as the government in waiting, not to defend fantasy. Not to defend fantasy, but to confront painful truth. You cannot market a burning house as a luxury estate. Umkhonto Wesizwe Party rejects the illusion that glossy campaigns, hashtags, and expensive branding exercise can conceal the lived reality of millions of South Africans. Brand South Africa wants to sell itself as an image of prosperity, while our people are trapped in unemployment, crime, collapsing infrastructure, and hopelessness. The tragedy is not simply that Brand SA is failing. The tragedy is that government believes perception management can substitute for government itself. The report exposes a deeply disturbing contradiction. The entity receives more than 97% of its funding from the taxpayer, yet it cannot clearly demonstrate measurable returns on investment. Parliament itself admits that Brand SA struggles to prove whether its campaigns actually increase investment, tourism, or global confidence. In simple terms, hundreds of millions are spent, but nobody can convincingly show what the people of South Africa receive in return. This is totally unacceptable, Minister. Worse still, nearly half of the entire budget, like 48%, is consumed by administration. Bureaucracy eats more than the actual branding and reputation work. This is the classic signature of a bloated state. Administrators multiplying while delivery shrinks. 107 million goes into administration. Only 99 million goes into actual branding and reputation management. So the bureaucracy markets itself better than it markets the country. That is not nation building. That is institutional self-preservation. The report itself admits that Brand SA is activity-driven rather than impact-driven. They measure campaigns, meetings, and reports, not results. They celebrate outputs instead of outcomes. South Africa cannot eat presentations. Investors do not invest in PowerPoints. Tourists do not arrive because of slogans. They come when a country works. And here lies the fundamental crisis confronting Brand SA. One, the greatest enemy of South Africa's image is not foreign media. It is the failure of governance under this so-called GNU administration. No branding campaign can hide load reduction and infrastructure decay, violent crime, and collapsing public trust in policing. Almost 98% youth unemployment, corruption scandals, ports that cannot function efficiently, municipal collapse across vast parts of the country. You cannot rebrand dysfunction. You must fix dysfunction. This report correctly acknowledges that South Africa has declined in major global rankings. But instead of aggressively confronting the root causes, Brand SA appears trapped in damage control mode, trying to explain away decline instead of reversing it. And Parliament itself now warns that our ICT systems are fragmented and outdated, while global competitors are use advanced analytics and cutting-edge digital tools. So even the battlefield of modern communication, South Africa is falling far behind. The MK Party clearly says that a nation brand is not manufactured in boardrooms. It is built through material conditions. A strong brand requires jobs, it requires safety, it requires industrial growth, functional rail and ports, energy security, ethical leadership, not pala, state capacity, economic justice. That is how you build credibility. Countries like China, Singapore, and Rwanda did not market themselves into success. They governed themselves into success. Brand South Africa currently operates like a public relations shield for state failure. It spends public money trying to soften the image of decline instead of confronting decline itself. Even more concerning is that Brand SA speaks constantly about constitutional values, social cohesion, and national pride, while millions of Black South Africans remain economically excluded from the wealth of their own country. How do you promote national pride when young graduates sit at home unemployed, while the economy remains structurally concentrated in a few hands? How do you market dignity to people who experience indignity daily? The MK Party believes the real South African brand must be anchored in economic liberation, industrialization, land justice, and state-led development, not corporate marketing language disconnected from the masses. And therefore, Chairperson, we submit that Parliament must intensify oversight over Brand South Africa in at least 4 critical areas. 1, measurable return on investment. Every campaign must demonstrate tangible economic outcomes, investment inflows, tourism growth, export growth, and improve competitiveness. Secondly, administrative downsizing. The entity cannot justify consuming nearly half of its budget on internal administration while claiming resource constraints. Thirdly, the digital modernization. South Africa cannot compete globally using outdated systems while the world operates on the age of AI, advanced analytics, and information warfare. Fourthly, alignment with real development outcomes. Branding must follow transformation, not substitute transformation. Chairperson, the world does not judge South Africa by advertisements. The world judges South Africa by whether our trains move, whether investors are safe, whether corruption is punished, whether lights stay on, and whether ordinary people have hope. The greatest branding campaign South Africa could ever launch is a functioning state, not this dysfunction that we see here. They can't even get the portfolio committees assembled properly. It's a complete mess. There's only thing left for South Africa. One thing left for South Africa is that we call on all South Africans to stop everything and vote MK Party.
The next speaker is the Honorable Singh. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members.
Honorable House Chairperson, the Media Development and Diversity Agency exists because community media matters. In many rural and underserved communities, community radio and local media are often the only accessible source of information. They tell communities when water systems fail, they expose corruption and service delivery failures. They share information about crime hotspots, missing persons, community safety initiatives, and emergency alerts. They promote local businesses, local opportunities, and local voices. They preserve indigenous languages and strengthen democratic participation at the grassroots level. If properly supported, community media can become a powerful engine for local accountability, community safety, economic participation, and social cohesion. But instead of building that potential, this ANC minister is allowing the institution responsible for supporting community media to descend into instability, governance failures, and executive paralysis. During our oversight visit to the MDDA, the committee encountered deeply troubling allegations of instability within the board and a toxic working environment inside the entity. This was not speculation. This came directly from engagements with the board and the employees themselves. Most seriously, the board chairperson confirmed that he had written to the minister requesting the removal of a board member because of alleged serious misconduct, and that no response had been received. I subsequently submitted a parliamentary question to establish the facts. The minister's own reply confirmed that the request for removal was submitted on 30th August 2024. And what were the allegations? According to the minister's own response, the allegations included intimidating and threatening behavior, racially discriminatory remarks, misogynistic conduct, breaches of governance standards, and violations of the MDDA Code of Conduct. These are not minor administrative disagreements. These are extremely serious allegations involving the governance of a public entity. Yet, despite this, the minister only referred the matter to the Office of the Speaker on the 3rd of October 2025, over a year later. That is not oversight. That is not leadership. That is executive failure. This is exactly why South Africans are losing confidence in ANC governance. Problems are ignored until they become crises. Warnings are delayed. Accountability is postponed. And institutions are left to deteriorate while ministers hide behind process and procedure. Let us be very clear. Governance failures in entities like the MDDA do not stay inside boardrooms. When boards become unstable, institutions stop functioning properly. Decision-making slows down. Staff morale collapses. Public trust erodes. And the organizations that ultimately suffer are the struggling community media organizations that depend on MDDA support to survive. House Chairperson, the APP itself also reflects a worrying lack of ambition and measurable impact. The MDDA plans to support only 20 community media projects to digitalize. Only 22 grant disbursements are planned. But where are the meaningful impact measurements? How many supported organizations become financially sustainable? How many survive beyond grant funding? How many create jobs? How many increase audience reach? And how many strengthen local democracy and community safety? How many help communities share urgent information about crime, gender-based violence, missing children, and local threats? And most importantly, how many successfully transition into viable digital platforms? South Africans are tired of APPs filled with workshops, dialogues, stakeholder engagements, and reports while measurable impact remains weak. This ministry has become obsessed with process instead of outcomes. The same criticism applies to the GCIS. Government communication under the ANC minister increasingly lacks credibility because South Africans experience a growing gap between official messaging and reality. You cannot communicate away collapsing municipalities. You cannot spin away unemployment. And you cannot slogan your way out of infrastructure failure, poverty, and rising crime. Government communication means very little when communities experience daily failure on the ground. Community media could play a transformative role in South Africa. It could strengthen local accountability, combat misinformation, and support local economic development. It could help communities respond more effectively to crime and safety threats. It could strengthen indigenous languages and community identity, and it could reconnect citizens with democratic participation at the local level. But none of this will happen while governance instability is ignored and ministers fail to act decisively when serious concerns are raised. The DA supports media diversity, we support community media, and we support ensuring that rural and disadvantaged communities have access to credible and accessible information. But we will not remain silent while ANC ministers preside over dysfunction, delay accountability, and weaken institutions through inaction. This committee must demand consequence management, governance stability, and measurable outcomes, not endless excuses. Because community media matters, the communities it serves matter, and South Africans deserve institutions that function, not institutions trapped in permanent crisis under ANC governance. I think some members need to fix their own house in order first. I thank you.
The next speaker
Point
is
of
the
order, Chair.
Honorable Kailisha.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable Kailisha, you can come to the podium and just take a seat. What is the point of order?
No, Chair, I wanted to ask, Uguti, is it parliamentary that the GNU on that side is not clapping for the GNU on this side?
Honorable member.
Is it parliamentary? Where is the unit?
Honorable member, don't raise frivolous points of order, really. Really, let's be serious. Please continue, honorable member.
Chairperson, the economic freedom fighters have reviewed the budget vote report from the GCIS. On the surface, the GCIS is requesting 803 million to coordinate government communication and empower citizens. However, we must ask a question of what this empowerment actually entails. Is it to mislead citizens, to leave them defenseless against systematic misinformation, or to remain silent while xenophobic violence is plotted openly? It is important to emphasize that the GCIS has not fulfilled its fundamental constitutional obligation to deliver timely, accurate, and accessible information that safeguards life, promotes social cohesion, and upholds democracy. Unfounded narratives of white genocide in South Africa have been exploited by both domestic and international reactionary elements. These falsehoods have been amplified by lobby groups, far-right politicians in the USA and Europe, and even Donald Trump, who used these misleading claims to criticize South Africa's land expropriation policies. Yayiphi i-GCIS ngeli xesha? Yayingekho. Kwakungekho mpendulo ikhawulezileyo, kungekho nzame zenziweyo zosasazo, kwaye kungekho mpendulo, kungekho phulo lokwazisa uluntu ngeelwimi zabo. While the GCIS claims to intend to counter misinformation, populist anti-immigrant rhetoric asserting that foreigners are taking jobs and overburdening the healthcare has circulated unchecked on social media, on community radio, and even some mainstream outlets. The GCIS lacks a dedicated, well-resourced, real-time misinformation unit. Its digital response hub remains merely a concept rather than an operational defense. Although the department allocates 38 million for medium-term research, there is no evidence of any behavioral changes or targeted counter-campaigns in the township and informal settlements. And this is where these false narratives thrive. Abantu baseSoweto, eDiepsloot, eAlexandra, bajikele ama-Afrika asuka eZimbabwe, eMalawi, eMozambique, naseSomalia, without the protection of the GCIS, which merely produces reports. Honorable Chairperson, in the last 2 years, we have seen organized marches, mass meetings, and social media campaigns pushing for expulsion of foreign nationals. For some, some of which escalated into violence and loss of life. Despite available intelligence and early warnings, the GCIS did not initiate a proactive communication campaign in all 11 official languages through available channels. Instead, it waited for a cabinet meeting to sit while lives were at stake. Let's consider a recent troubling instance. Kukombo, misinformation agents created an entirely false narrative, claiming that a Nigerian king was being installed in South Africa. This fabricated story suggested that an event would allow Nigerian nationals to take control of local businesses, land, and traditional authority. Within days, community rallied, threats were made, and businesses owned by foreign nationals became targets. South Africa and Nigerians found themselves pitted against each other, resulting in chaos not caused by any actual event, but a strategic viral lie. Yayiphi i-GCIS ngelo xesha? Yayithule. There was no prompt fact-checking, no press briefing, no engagement with no community radio, no door-to-door, no outreach, and no statement to ease the situation. Nothing at all. I-GCIS njengesiqhelo yaqhubeka ilindele ukuba kuhlale intlanganiso ye-cabinet. Meanwhile, the threats emerged, businesses shut down, and significant divisions were formed within communities. The GCIS does not perceive disinformation as a crisis. They regard it as a mere inconvenience. This situation is not an isolated incident. I-GCIS yohlulakele ukuzalisekisa uxanduva lwayo lokuxhasa inyaniso nokukhuthaza imvisiswano eluntwini. We cannot rely on them to serve the needs of our people. Chairperson, the EFF will not remain passive while a well-funded department fails to safeguard the unity of African people. Disinformation is more than an annoyance, it is weaponized. Xenophobia is not a mere viewpoint, it is a crime against humanity. The GCIS has shown itself repeatedly to be both unwilling and incapable of addressing either issue. We reject this budget as a disrespect to the memory of those who lost their lives in xenophobic attacks, which could have been mitigated with honest, urgent, and bold communication. Lastly, Chairperson, we call on all young people to go out and register to vote for the EFF so that we can attain economic freedom in our lifetime.
The next speaker is the Honorable Gobesi on the virtual platform.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. Greetings to all members. Let me quickly go in. Thank you so much. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, the Inkatha Freedom Party welcomes the budget for recognizing that a capable and responsive society depends on communication that informs, empowers, and includes every citizen. We cannot build an inclusive democracy while large section of our society remains excluded from the access to information and platforms of engagement. We welcome efforts to modernize communication networks, strengthen digital platforms, and improve coordination across all spheres. Expanding digital tools and multilingual messaging, including the editorial content hub, is vital to ensuring the information reaches both urban hubs and rural heartlands. Messaging must meet citizens where they are, using formats and languages that are practical, accessible, and inclusive of South African diverse communities. Community media must be elevated. Local radio and print remains the most credible vehicles of bringing information to the grassroots. At the same time, Honorable Chairperson and members, as communication shifts into digital spaces, we face the dual challenge of combating misinformation and embracing technology advancement. Emerging counter-false narratives enhance access to information and safeguard citizens' rights. This is especially critical as we approach the November 4 local government elections, where a rapid response to disinformation will be essential. Yet our support is tempered by concerns, Honorable Chair, capacity constraint, uneven communication reach, and the stubborn digital divide continue to isolate rural and under-resourced communities. Delays in appointing a permanent Director General risk leadership stability, while the resources limitation dilute the effectiveness of messaging. A public communication must move beyond visibility and empty praise. Resources must be deployed efficiently, transparently, and with measurable public value. Stronger oversight, tighter coordination, and absolute accountability are required. Every rand spent must provide practical information that enables citizens to engage measurably, meaningfully with democracy and access services. Remedial buying policy must be finalized to ensure this spending directed to the SABC and community media. To bridge gaps, investments must be directed towards community media. Digital accessibility must be expanded and rural communication strengthened. Strategies should deliberately prioritize inclusivity, translate vital information into multiple official languages, and reaches vulnerable groups, including youth, women, persons with disability, and those cut off from the digital grid. Ultimately, the IFP support measures that entrench professionalism and ethic standards. Communication campaigns must be coordinated, measurable, and responsive to the real needs of our people. Public communication must strengthen accountability, restore confidence in the institution, and foster active citizenship. Honorable Chair, effective communication must fortify democratic participation and heal the relationship between the leaders and the people they serve. The IFP support this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Hendricks.
Disclaimer, we support this budget. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I rise today to debate vote 4, GCIS, a vote that goes to the heart of whether governments speak to the people or merely about them. GCIS is responsible for ensuring that every community in this country has access to clear, accurate, and timely information about government programs, rights, and services. It is the institution that must bridge the gap between policy and the lived realities of our people. But Speaker, the truth is this: for decades, communication from government has not reached the communities who need it most. The colored communities of the Cape Flats, the West Coast, the Northern Cape, and the rural and peri-urban poor across South Africa have been systematically underinformed, under-consulted, and underrepresented in government communication channels. This is not an opinion. This is a pattern reflected in multiple oversight reports, community feedback sessions, and the persistent digital divide that affects marginalized communities. GCIS has a constitutional responsibility to ensure inclusive communication, yet many communities still do not receive information in languages they understand, to platforms they can access, or in formats that reflects their lived experience. The Patriotic Alliance cannot accept a communication system that leaves entire communities behind. Speaker, ons mense sê dit lankal, hoe kan jy 'n government hê wat claim hulle werk vir jou, maar jy hoor nooit van hulle nie? In die vlakte, in die Kaap, in die platteland, mense kry nie die information wat hulle nodig het om hulle families te beskerm, om vir opportunities te apply, of om korrupsie te report nie. GCIS moet ophou praat oor communities, begin praat met hulle. As jy regtig wil hê dat government communication moet werk, dan moet jy begin by die mense wat altyd laaste hoor. Die tannies wat vroeg opstaan vir taksies, die ouens wat shifts werk, die youth wat nie data het nie, hulle moet nie net 'n voetnoot wees nie. Hulle moet die sente wees van die GCIS sy werk doen. Honorable members, GCIS has made progress in expanding digital platforms, improving media monitoring, and strengthening the TUSO Service Center program, which is meant to bring government information closer to the communities. But the PA insists that these centers must be properly resourced, properly staffed, and properly located, not only in urban hubs, but in the very community that even have communities that have been historically excluded. We also know the ongoing work of GCIS in coordinating communication across departments, especially during crises, but coordination means nothing if the message never reaches the people. The PA calls for community-based communication strategies, including partnerships with local radios, community newspapers, faith-based organizations, and grassroots structures that have credibility on the ground. Furthermore, GCIS must address the digital inequality that continues to marginalize colored and working-class communities. A communication strategy that relies heavily on online platforms while millions cannot afford data. It is not a strategy, it is an exclusion mechanism. The PA expects vote for to prioritize accessible multilingual community center communication. Honorable Speaker, the Patriotic Alliance support vote for. I repeat, we support vote for only on the condition that GCIS becomes a tool for real inclusion, not symbolic outreach. We expect measurable outcomes. We thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable James. Is the Honorable Member on the platform?
Yes, thank you, Honorable
Please-
House Chair.
Please proceed.
Honorable House Chair, ask any entity or department about their interaction with the government communication and information system, and the response is overwhelmingly negative. The fact that no Director General has been permanently appointed to this entity is a glaring warning sign about its internal governance and institutional capacity to deliver on its critical mandate. This is the very department responsible for government communications, yet still lacks clear standardized audience reach metrics such as the distinction between impressions and unique users. That alone tells you that this department does not fully understand the effectiveness of its own communication strategies. There is also a serious misalignment between the department's key performance indicators and its budget allocations, raising further concerns about planning, oversight, and accountability. Honorable Speaker, we must also remember that this is an election year. South Africans do not want their phones, televisions, and social media feeds suddenly flooded with thinly disguised government propaganda masquerading as public information campaigns celebrating supposed achievements. GCIS has too often been used not as a genuine communications platform in the public interest, but as a political machinery designed to advance the image of the party in governance using state resources. We are therefore of the view that any non-essential government advertising and promotional communication campaigns in the lead up to elections should be placed on hold. Instead, the focus and resources of this department should be directed towards supporting and capacitating the Independent Electoral Commission to deliver a powerful, impactful, and far-reaching voter registration and voter education campaign in all official languages. This is essential if we are serious about reversing the continued decline in voter registration and voter turnout that we are witnessing election after election. A democracy cannot thrive when fewer and fewer citizens believe their participation matters or do not understand how their participation matters. This is especially relevant for the millions of young people who have completely checked out of our democratic process. The role of government communication should be to strengthen democratic participation and not to promote political interests. We do not believe that the myriad of challenges facing this entity will be achieved. I thank you.
Honorable members, we are aware that there's a problem with the video feed on the platform. It's being attended to by the IT. We heard the member's voice. I now recognize the Honorable Deputy Minister in the Presidency, the Honorable Moralong.
Chair, I've raised my hand.
Ate go leboge modulasetulo. Maybe the first thing I must do before I deal with salutations or greetings is to remind my brother, Honorable Jimmy Manyi.
Chair, I've raised my hand. Can you recognize me, please?
Sit down. No problem.
Honourable member, what is your point of order? On the virtual platform?
Asisho sikhosana lo lelo, sikhosana lo se-TV uyakhuluma ubhuti omdala.
Chair, I've raised my hand. Can I be recognized, please?
Honourable Skoskana, please proceed with the point of order.
I just want to ask the chair once again that all the other languages are here. Isindebele asikho. And if that's the case, it means that that language has been undermined, because I've been raising this issue many times. Our people are calling us to say, why are we undermined? Why there's no interpreter for Isindebele? Because all the other languages are
Thank
there.
you, Honourable
Thank you, Chair.
Skoskana. I've got the point. You don't have to make a speech. Honourable Frolic already reminded the chamber that the problem that is there is dealt with, and we will refer that back to the House Chair. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. You may continue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me remind Honorable Manyi of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, particularly Section 55 of the Constitution. And I've raised this matter before in the Portfolio Committee. I want to regurgitate it for the purpose of the debate today. The National Assembly must provide for mechanisms to ensure that all executive organs of state in the national sphere of government are accountable to it. In other words, it is the responsibility of Parliament to make sure that the executive and organs of states are accountable. So the modalities thereof are not determined by the members of the executive, but by yourselves, honorable members. So I thought it is important that we must remind you that it is your responsibility to particularly position MDDA, Brand SA, and GCIS as to where it should report. It's not the responsibility of the executive. Honorable House Chairperson, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Chairperson of Communication and Digital Technologies, Minister in the Presidency, Ms. Kumbuzo Nchaveni, Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Ms. Nongeba Mhlauli, members of the Portfolio Committee on Communication and Digital Technologies and Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Chairperson and members of boards of Brand SA, MDDA, management and staff of GCIS, MDD and Brand SA. Pele ga ngwaga wa 1994, Afrika Borwa e ne le naga e eteletsweng pele ke puso ya tlhaolele ya apartheid. E ne le naga e motheo wa yone o ne le wa tlhaolele wa mmala wa kgatelelo le bosetlhogo jo bo tseneletseng. Ka nako e go tlhagile dikgatlhamela masisi tsa balwela kgololosego jaaka borre ka o bitsa Bushimape yo o tlogetseng lefatshe le le ka kwano. Bra Bushi jaaka ne re mo bitsa o ne a nna mongwe wa batho ba ne ba tsaya tshwetso ya go nna masole a ntwa kgatlhanong le puso ya tlhaolele bosemorafe le kgatelelo ya batho ba bantsho ka kakaretso. Mme se ne sa dira gore a sotlakakiwe le go tshwara ko Robben Island. Bra Bushi e ne le mogaka wa kgololosego yono a inetse go aga Afrika Borwa o mošwa yo o nyoumang ka ditšhono. Re gopola Bra Bushi jaaka mogaka yo neng a inetse go direla setšhaba sa rona ebile a rata thuto thata, a mowa wa molwela kgaratlho yo kgethegileng o robale ka kagiso. Brand South Africa is the official marketing agency and custodian of the country's nation brand, which has successfully reconstructed the story of our country through its various initiatives and programs. And we're not talking events only. Ndatemane. It strives to mobilize multi-sectoral stakeholders in an effort to create and manage the country's reputation and build its competitiveness. In addition, we established the Media Development and Diversity Agency to promote media diversity, development, and access to information, particularly for historically disadvantaged and underserved communities, ensuring that South Africa has access to a diverse and representative media landscape. As we table this 2026-2027 budget vote for the Department of Government Communication and Information System, we stand tall on the shoulders of history, drawing strength and inspiration from our nation's defining milestone that continue to shape our vibrant democracy. Today, the community sector has over 200 community radio stations, a thriving community television sector, and 300 print and online publications covering different urban and rural areas in all official languages. These platforms all add to diversity in content, ownership and voice, and plurality to create an ecosystem of complementarity and inclusivity. This year, we proudly celebrate 4 epic moments in our nation's journey, each one a powerful beacon of courage, resilience, and unity of our people. A system of support will be put in place, led by GCIS and MDDA to assist stations in provinces to deal with statutory requirements such as SARS compliance, corporate governance, management and leadership, and community involvement. The intention is to create a model that can be replicated elsewhere in the country with modifications to take varying local contexts and conditions into account. Community radio stations are unsustainable in their current regulatory environment as they're dependent on the discretion of advertisers and limited resources available to MDDA. We will soon expedite the implementation of digitization of community media. We're also amending the MDDA Act, which will allow us to make significant changes in the sector as proposed in the draft white paper on audio and audiovisual and content services and online safety, as well as to strengthen the sector's compliance with ICASA's 2019 Community Broadcasting Service Regulations. We'll also make provisions on community media diversity and plurality index to determine at one stage this country can declare that we have reached adequate levels of community media diversity, which is a key principle in dealing with community media sustainability. Given the fact that these are areas in the country where there's limited, or there are areas in the country where there's limited economic activity, we will create a reserve market where sustenance of community media projects will be continuous by government. As part of this support for community media, will provide for legislative provision on the composition of community media boards and their term of office to protect government investment. MDDA has allocated, or MDDA rather, is dedicated to its core mandate of supporting and strengthening South Africa's community media sector, guided by a clear vision of a media landscape that is accessible, developmental, diverse, and sustainable. The agency is committed to ensuring that historically disadvantaged communities are no longer mere consumers of media, but active participants, creators, and owners. The MDDA enters the 2027 financial year with a focused and ambitious program of action aimed at deepening institutional excellence and expanding support for community and small commercial media. The organization has a definitive plan to strengthen governance, improve operational efficiency, and ensure its long-term sustainability. In the coming year, the agency will fund 22 community broadcasting projects and 6 print and digital media initiatives while extending digital support to 20 media entities across the country. The MDDA will also intensify monitoring and evaluation efforts to ensure accountability, impact, and measurable outcomes from funded projects. As our nation readies itself for the upcoming 2026 local government elections on the 4th of November 2026, it's all hands on deck to continue with our legacy of free and fair elections. The MDDA has joined hands with the IEC, South African National Editors Forum, the South African Local Government Association, an Africa Check to roll out a nationwide training program for journalists. This initiative will help strengthen credible reporting, combat disinformation, and subject the integrity of South Africa's democratic processes. Brand South Africa, whose work remains central to strengthening national identity, deepening social cohesion, and positioning South Africa as a competitive and credible nation on the global stage. In an increasingly complex international environment marked by geopolitical uncertainty and rapid technological change, the importance of a trusted nation brand has never been greater. Brand South Africa is stepping into a new era of proactive engagement. It will expand its advocacy and position work to ensure that South Africa's voice resonates with greater authority within the global governance institutions and multilateral platforms. The mission is clear: to forge a resilient, globally competitive nation brand and position South Africa as a leading emerging market and strategic African hub for trade, investment, and cutting-edge innovation. Through strategic storytelling, Brand South Africa will showcase the full spectrum of our strength, from our vast economic potential and vibrant culture heritage to our unwavering democratic values. At home, it will continue to champion nation-building initiatives that ignite, unite, and ensure that there's social cohesion and active citizenship, ensuring that a resilient domestic foundation remains the bedrock of our global influence. South Africa finds itself competing with other nation brands for every tourist that travels to and every businessman that thinks of investing. This fierce competition now
Honourable
requires
Deputy
governments to
Minister, your time is expired. You can finish your sentence.
Oh, no, thank you very much.
Honourable Deputy Minister, you can finish your sentence. The next speaker is Honourable Marara.
Honorable House Chair, Honorable Minister, and the Deputy Ministers, honorable members and fellow South Africans. I rise to address the budget vote for that is too often treated as procedural rather than constitutional. Section 195G of the Constitution does not frame government communication as a service to the state may offer when convenient. It frames timely, accurate, and accessible information as an obligation flowing from the founding values of the Republic of South Africa. The 803.2 million allocated to the government communication and information system in 2026-2027 financial year, and the 2.5 billion appropriated over the medium-term expenditure framework must therefore be assessed against the constitutional benchmark, not against ambition of any single administration. South Africa now has 12 official languages, including the sign language, a communication system that defaults to English, and 1 or 2 African languages that not satisfy Section 195G. The department's commitment in the 26-27 financial year annual performance plan to expand the use of all official languages across flagship products, including the Vukuzenzele newspaper, cabinet statement, and the State of the Nation address is necessary, but it is not sufficient. The 9.9 million set aside in the products and platform sub-program over the medium term must translate into measurable linguistic reach. A publication produced in 3 languages, while 9 are excluded, is not multilingual government. It is a selective government dressed in translation. The annual performance plan target an audience reach of 800 million across digital platform in 2026-2027 financial year, rising to 1.1 billion by 2028-2029. The estimated performance for 2025-2026 is 180 million. A more than fourfold leap in a single financial year warrants scrutiny on methodology, not applause. The Portfolio Committee was correct to insist that the targets must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. As the ANC, we welcome ambition at all material time, but ambitions disconnected from methodology becomes a performance indicator that sometimes is confusing. Rich figures derived from algorithmic impressions are not the same as citizens informed. A scroll past on a social media feed does not equate to a household that knows how to apply for SASSA support, register a small business, or access government bursaries. The Auditor General will not audit impressions. The Auditor General will always and shall always audit outcomes. The 38.4 million in the Research, Analysis and Knowledge Service sub-program over the medium term, together with 3 qualitative tracker surveys targeted for 26-27 must be deployed to disaggregate, reach into demonstrable measures of comprehension, recall, and behavioral uptake. A communication system that reaches every citizen cannot pass the platform that ordinary South Africans actually consume. The commitment to direct 30% of government advertising spend to community media is not a charitable concession to a struggling sector. It is a structural correction to the historical exclusion of indigenous language and rural audiences from mainstream advertising media. Honorable Chairperson, the Portfolio Committee has flagged the current centralized media buying target of 40% over the 5-year period and is inadequate, and must be revised upwards. The committee was equally pointed in its observation that the government media buying policy developed in 2018 remains unenforceable 7 years later. As the ANC, we cannot defend a policy frozen in draft form while community broadcasters carry close to 100 million in signal distribution debt to SENTEC. The minister must finalize this policy within the current financial year, present it to the committee, and report on the share of departmental advertising spend that has actually reached community media. The provincial and local liaison sub-program is allocated 63.7 million over the medium term to support 1,250 communities and stakeholder engagement annually. These engagements are not photocopy opportunities. They are the constitutional obligation of a government that has chosen to govern the mandate by mandate rather than by decree. They are the constitutional obligation of a government that has chosen to govern by mandate rather than by decree. The Imbizo program, community dialogues, and outreach at taxi ranks and shopping centers remain among the few mechanisms through which an elderly resident in Lusikisiki or a young person in Khalashewe can engage a minister without an intermediary. As the ANC, we expect this allocation to deliver in districts that have been historically underserved and not to be concentrated where coverage is almost saturated. The ANC support budget vote for on the express understanding that the department's reporting will move from output counting to outcome measurements.
Honorable
that the
member,
government media
your time is expired.
communication that does not reach every. Thanks, Bart.
Is there a speaker for the ACDP? The UDM? Rise Mzansi? Bosa? ATM? Aljama? Freedom Front Plus? NCC? UTA? PAC? Good. The next speaker is Honorable Botlani.
Ke a leboha, modulasetulo. Established in 1998, the Government Communications and Information System could not have imagined that in 2026, so much would have evolved in government communication strategies. Today, technology has advanced, the medium of communication has surpassed human imagination, and the prevalence of misinformation and disinformation is a thing. This budget provides Parliament with an opportunity to reflect on the GCIS, to evaluate if it is fit to deliver change to South Africans as we debate the annual performance plan for 2026-2027. The GCIS is mandated to provide professional services in government communications. As such, Program 1 of the APP is for administration. For this financial year, the GCIS plans to upskill 20% of employees in digital communications and coordination skills. This, Minister, is a commendable plan, but one has to question if the 20% target is low and represents a snail's pace, given that the GCIS also aims to improve responsiveness. Deputy Minister, perhaps this 20% should include some ministers who, after years of using facilities such as Zoom, are unable to use the correct backgrounds, depicting their department corporate identity. This, while most departments have dedicated communication officials, we are subjected to looking up the nostrils of ministers as they fail the basic camera positions, let alone mute and unmute functions. GCIS minister must get the basics right. The formation of the Government of National Unity has allowed the GCIS to somewhat redeem itself. After years of serving as a mouthpiece for previous majority government, we welcome the efforts to serve all departments and make a call to the department to utilize your services, Minister. As you position yourselves as the custodians to influence adherence to standards for an effective government communication system and drive coherent government message. Honorable House Chair, with 54.8% allocation of the budget, Program 2 requires a proactive GCIS. For any information services, content is king. Your ability to process and disseminate information could mean the difference between ignorance and an informed citizenry. With millions of followers on your platforms, there is a huge potential to be a trusted source of government activities, eliminate fake news, mis- and disinformation, especially about South Africa. We note with great concern that there is no allocation made for the 2026 local government election, which simply means GCIS will have to divert funds to cover these elections. This, Minister, would be a repeat of what we saw in the 2024 celebrations of the inauguration of President Ramaphosa, where no funds were allocated and GCIS needed to make a diversion in order to cover that cost. We are also acutely aware that municipalities across the country are failing. This is news. Citizens have a right to hear through GCIS how their own towns and cities are being mismanaged and how municipalities are bankrupt, yet no one is held accountable. Equally, they need to know that how provinces such as the Western Cape under the DA have thriving municipalities. We commend the men and women of GCIS who, as we debate another budget for the GCIS, we do so without a Director General. This, while the GCIS has men and women who are fit for purpose, but unfortunately, political principles battle to find a person who is already doing the job that they are doing. We also remain convinced, Honorable Minister, that the GCIS and MDDA are misplaced in the presidency. The conversations must be had of how we are going to correct this anomaly. We support calls for its move to the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies for better streamlining of our government communications entities. Ke a leboha.
The next speaker is Honorable Choki Adonis.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and Presiding Chair. I greet honorable members, fellow South African representatives and officials that are with us, and I say all protocol observed. As we sit here on behalf of the African National Congress, we must declare that we support vote for. In this declaration, we also emphasize that we have our own conditions. These conditions speak towards ensuring that there must be mass communication that is deliberate, intentional, and inclusive. There must not be any exclusion of any particular sector, community, and individual in South Africa. We must understand that as we debate the budget, debate number 4, we speak of GCIS, MDDA, and also Brand South Africa. Now, these entities and institutions are quite critical in terms of ensuring the brand and also the face of this country. Now, let me start with GCIS. On GCIS, we must understand that those who say they do not support this budget, and without stating that we will support with conditions and just ultimately dismiss it, are merely saying to South Africans that they do not want South Africans to receive enabling, empowering, and informative information. They want to be the ones who are driving the ship of misinformation and fake news and propaganda, which we know the soldiers this side are the ones who usually do that. Now, we must understand how instrumental GCIS is. GCIS also has a responsibility. Chairperson, protect me.
Member. Order.
As I proceed.
Honorable, you are drowning out the speaker. Can you please be quiet? Thank you. You may continue, Honorable.
Thank you very much. From the reaction, we can tell that they know themselves, that they are the ones who are disseminating false and negative information that seeks to belittle and undermine government and what government has done for South Africans by providing misleading and misinformation to South African citizens, also inciting violence across South Africa. We must understand that GCIS plays an instrumental role, and then we call upon—
Honorable Choki Adonis, will you please take your seat? There's a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Honorable-
Point of order. She was calling members of parliament into disrepute, saying that we will be inciting violence, and she did refer to our
did not name anyone.
to the people on the left, specifically to people on the left, and people in camouflage. That makes very clear that she's talking about M.
Thank you very much. Honorable Choki Adonis, will you just, did you refer to that? I couldn't hear because the shouting was so loud.
Thank you very much, Chair. I did not refer to any particular individual or party, but I did say there are those who are making the loudest noise that know that they incite violence.
Thank
It could be anyone in this room.
You said soldiers.
Please, then, thank you very much.
The soldiers, you said.
We will listen to the answer and rule on that. Thank you. Can you continue?
Thank you very much. As I indicated, I might be blind, but not deaf, so I know where the sound is coming from. As I indicated, the GCIS is quite critical and instrumental in disseminating information and connecting South Africans with government information, ensuring that they are able to
Honorable
gain
Choki Adonis, will you please take your seat? There's a point of order.
Honorable Chair, you've now heard it for yourself. She confirmed that she's speaking about us on the left. So we need
Honorable
a
member.
ruling on this. She must withdraw the statement. She must withdraw the statement. Thank you.
Not able to hear.
She must. Honorable members, if you are not going to calm down, I will switch off your microphones.
House Chair.
The honorable speaker,
a soldier.
the honorable member referred to herself. That's not a point of order. Honorable member, your point of order, please.
Thank you. Thank you,
Oh, I must still sit. Sorry.
House Chair. Chair, maybe I should read the rule 85 because I think in this place is totally misunderstood. Other people talk about, you didn't mention names. Nothing here requires names. The rule says no member may impute improper motives to any other member or cast
Any other
aspersions, reflections upon members' integrity and dignity. Now, when she says we on this side are disseminating information, she is casting aspersions without any substantiation. She is referring to us as a group of members. Here, there is no requirement to mention names on this rule.
Thank you.
House
Thank you,
Chair,
Honorable
have a point of order. You
As-
can't ignore our point of
Point of
order.
order, wait.
Point of order.
Member, Honorable Dagmar, can I just rule on the point of order that I was busy with before I listen to your point of order? Honorable member, as I ruled earlier, I said I will listen to the Hansard because of all the noises that you're making while I'm trying to take the point of order. I did not hear what the member said. That rule, as you quoted it, is there, and I will wait for the table staff to listen to the Hansard so that we can make a ruling. Honorable Dagmar, your point of order, if it's not on the same point.
Thank you, House Chair. Just to address you on that particular ruling and accepting your ruling, it would have been a different matter if Honorable Adonis had mentioned, for instance, Honorable Reddy by name.
Order, Chair. Order,
Because
Chair.
he inspired violence, but she didn't mention his name. But we know that Honorable Reddy did inspire violence.
The chair's ruled.
Honorable members, I've already made a rule on that. We will listen to the Hansard, we will make a rule, and if the members in this house on both sides are not happy, we will refer it to the Rules Committee. Thank you. You may continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. As I proceed, and I was saying that GCIS has a responsibility to disseminate information in all official 12 languages. And therefore, this is an expectation that information must reach the most rural, remote areas in our country. It must reach the most vulnerable in our society. It has been said here that GCIS has a responsibility to disseminate information that is enabling, empowering, and informative on all government activities across all spheres of government. And that's the responsibility it has. GCIS additionally must also contribute towards the civic education and voter registration processes that we'll be undertaking as we go to the voting polls on the 4th of November. And therefore, we are calling on to the Minister of Treasury and the relevant entities and institutions to ensure that there is a budget allocation that will enable GCIS and other communications institutions to do so and provide the necessary support. We must understand that GCIS, those who say it is used as a machinery for false propaganda on behalf of apparently the ruling government, this is undermining the GCIS. This completely undermines the GCIS. We must understand that the GCIS profiles even those ministers who are from the opposition who are now form part of the GNU. We must understand that GCIS highlights all issues across municipalities, even where, as the African National Congress, we might be facing difficulties and challenges. It is very transparent and does not mislead any South African. We must understand, we also request that GCIS must provide a strategic...
Order, please. Order, please. Honorable members on the left. Can you respect the rules of this house? If you want to speak, put up your hand and do a point of order. If you interject, I must remind all of you on the left and on the right side that you are not allowed to drown out the speaker. At the moment, you are drowning out the speaker. Please, can we continue?
Thank you very much. We understand that the toy soldiers get very upset as we proceed, now we move on to Brand SA. Brand SA is instrumental in ensuring the brand visibility of this country. It must also highlight the work that is to be done when we speak about the national dialogue. The same work that was put in by GCIS and Brand SA towards the G20 must be the same effort and dedication that goes into the national dialogue. The national dialogue is instrumental, does not belong to any political party, but belongs to South African citizens. We must understand that as a country that is evolving, this is not something that is just time consuming, as other political parties would want to address. They've already taken a political calculation that is miscalculated and not in the interest of South African citizens. We're saying South Africans must participate in the national dialogue, and GCIS and other communication institutions and agencies must cover this sufficiently. We go to MDDA. MDDA has created multiple platforms for print media, radio outlets, and local radio stations, and other platforms for those who are emerging in rural, township, and peri-urban communities. And therefore, we're saying this must be further accelerated. It must not stop now. It must continue. We're saying that there must be ring-fenced strategic framework that seeks to guide the work of the MDDA, and therefore, even their accountability must be measurable. And this speaks to all these institutions and entities. We want a framework, a framework and a strategy and a plan that seeks to not speak about what you are able to present, but we must be able to see tangible and impactful results ultimately. We're not just going through a tick box exercise, but we must be able to measure the impact of the work in which you have presented and what this budget has been approved and passed for. Now, when it comes to the other political parties, and we understand that there are those even from the DA who might want to support the minister, and we do appreciate the Minister of Digital Communications. But we must understand that he's one of the individuals and the political party in which they do not want to see triple BE going forward. They seek to oppress those who are marginally and historically disadvantaged. We ask the minister, what are your plans when it comes to the triple BEE ICT sector council? Because you seek to disband that council. We're saying you must account and say, what measures have you taken? You cannot come here as the DA and tell us BEE
can you
will
please
not go
take your
forward.
seat? There's a point of order. Honorable Christie, do we raise a point of order?
Chair, is a 32.7% unemployment rate not oppressing the poor?
Can you please quiet down? I could not hear the point of order. Honorable Christie, can you repeat your point of order?
Chair, may I
It's a
ask the
question, it's
honourable
not
a
a point of
question?
order. Sit down.
Or Honorable Piri, you did not raise your hand on point of order. I'm not addressing you on the platform. I am addressing Honorable Christie. Thank you.
Chair, may I ask honourable Chauke a question?
Honorable Chauke, would you take a question?
It was not a point of order, it is a question. I decline to respond to the question, but it can be written if necessary. Thank you very much, Honorable Christie. As I was saying, that the DA seeks to undermine progressive legislations and policies that seek to empower our Africans, South African African individuals, those who are in SMMEs and businesses, and those who are emerging in the sector of ICT. We must say we will not allow this as the African National Congress. We will come and defend the triple BE at all costs. We will never undermine the progress in which we have made in the dispensation of our democracy. We must also indicate that we are calling that the minister must finalize the government media buying policy. We have taken a resolution in the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies that this must be brought forward to Cabinet and the Portfolio Committee, and this must be done in this financial year. We must understand that not bringing this forward will seek to continue to undermine government beneficiation and ensuring that state-owned institutions are able to benefit. But equal to that, we're able to beneficiate through SMMEs and emerging industries. Lastly, I must indicate,
Your time has expired.
always said, Malibongwe, uzayithola kanjani usihlele khoneni?
Order, please. Order. The next speaker is the Honorable Minister, Minister in the Presidency.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Indeed, listening is a skill. I spoke about the appointment of the DG that has to be processed by DPSA and go to Cabinet. And all of you do not hear that. You are then still talking about. That's why I thank the Acting Director General. But maybe let me start where I need to start. So the member of the GNU, the partner in the GNU wants us to move GCIS to the DCDT. But here you had the PA and the IFP complaining about data and inaccessibility of the digital divide. That digital divide is continuing now because the member, a minister responsible for the DCDT, has not taken forward the deployment of community access, internet access, which we had started when I was the minister there. Also, the minister has not taken forward, the minister of DCDT have not taken forward the reduction of cost of data, which we started when I was minister in that portfolio. So even taking GCIS to that portfolio, is it going to be run by AI? So, and I just needed to clarify that part and also clarify and we appreciate your support, Honorable Botlani. But Honorable Singh, a minister is not a post box. So when allegations are made against a member of the board, the minister needs to apply her mind and do the necessary consultations. And that's why it took the time. If you look at the veracity of the allegations, I needed to satisfy myself that those allegations are sound and they'll stand the test of time when we submit them to Parliament and the Portfolio Committee to do the processing. So therefore, you cannot come here and say we are incompetent and we have not done anything to address the issues. We are very competent, and that's why they've processed the matters the way we have processed them. The question is, when you were choosing only one issue at the MDDA, why are you not supporting the initiatives of the MDDA to support community-based media? They are targeting the number they are targeting because of the funding issue. And it's not the first ones they're doing. This is an accumulation of the number they're doing. We've got 356 community-based media. And of that number, we have already serviced more than 200 of those to support them to migrate into digital infrastructure. So we cannot be selective in wanting to criticize the work we are doing. And if members are genuine about the budget and the underfunding of the GCIS and its entities, members were informed by the chairperson of the Appropriations Committee that members can make a submission within 10 days from this vote and to make sure that the funding can be increased because that provision is there in law. And we appreciate the support from the PA and we appreciate the support from the IFP. And we'll continue to demand in Cabinet that our colleagues comes with a proposal of reducing data because indeed the cost of data must fall. and to make sure that he accelerates a digital inclusivity and bridge the digital divide by including community hotspots for Wi-Fi, so that our people can be able to access those facilities, not because they want to access communication, but because they need to access other services that they can get through online capabilities that are there in government. And the imbizos are done by the Department of Local Government, Cooperative Governments and Traditional Affairs. And maybe it's a pity, Honorable Felicia, you are back. I think we need to fact check your things. You said GCIS did not communicate, and it was not an alleged king. They said they were installing a king and they backtracked. And that communication, because we coordinate a system, the Deputy Minister of Traditional Affairs, Honorable Reverend Prince Bas Ngamashe, was there communicating and interacting in that community, and to make sure that those matters, because we cannot be undermined in our own country. And that's why the Nigerian government also apologized. And if we are talking, when we're talking about xenophobia, we need to talk about immigration. Is immigration not a challenge? It is a challenge, and we must have a fair discussion. Why are people trending southwards? What are they running away from their own countries? And we say, who are here legally? Because legally, you've got 55,000 refugees. You've got 82,000 asylum seekers. So that number, it will not create a problem in South Africa because they are legally here. Home Affairs has received and approved 1.3 million people to come in. But we've got, in terms of statistics, South Africa, data that is above. And that's why we're strengthening our work to make sure that our borders are safe and that law enforcement takes its responsibility of making sure that those who are in the country illegally and undocumented are deported back to their home countries. But we cannot allow anyone to come and say, we want your passport, what's not law enforcement. We cannot allow the mobilization that wants to destabilize the country, that wants to use an excuse of attacking other people on the basis of we're dealing with illegal immigration. By the way, the people that are being attacked, it's not only undocumented foreigners. They are attacking even people who don't speak a particular language, the people who speak Tsonga, people who speak Sivenda. It is a problem. So we are dealing with that. So we should not be convenient. There is an illegal immigration challenge in South Africa, and we are seized with dealing with that. We've put the white papers, and there are employers who continuously not want to employ South Africans and in the convenience of employing non-South Africans and creating tensions with ourselves. And talking of corruption, it's us who have instituted measures to deal with corruption, including the very Madlanga Commission. You spoke about load reduction, woman. You said we won't sort out load shedding. We sorted out load shedding. Now you want to use load reduction. We've given a commitment, but that 7 of the provinces will be rid of load reduction by December 2026 and 3 by March 2027. And we are going to deliver on that. Thank you, Honorable Member.
Honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members.
House Chair Clark, today you look beautiful. You look younger.
Honorable members. Honorable Piri, I did not recognize you.
Honorable Billy must
Thank
go.
you,
No, you are
Honorable Billy must be
beautiful.
taken out of
Honorable
this
Clark.
platform.
That
must
House
go
Chair,
ahead.
you
Must
are
go ahead. And this is of this mini plenary session.
You are
The mini
ill-disciplined,
plenary
all
will
of
now
you.
rise.
Mbali, you're out of order, eh?